It's going to be an exciting one, though. We're shifting gears. We started the day with a keynote address, then we did a couple of panel discussions, and now it's time for an exciting fireside chat.
And I can already see the fireside chat there, building and scaling profitable B2B businesses in India, to be moderated by Naina Sood, Senior Correspondent, Money Control, and our speaker for the day, Aditya Sharda, founder in From Market.
Welcome to day 2 of Startup Mahakumbh. I'm seeing the momentum only surging with every minute. And thank you so much, Aditya, for taking out time. And it's a pleasure to be having this chat with you and being a part of this amazing gathering here at Startup Mahakumbh. We'll try to make the most out of the next 30 minutes, because B2B, as it's termed, the unsexy business in the startup segment. So, we'll try to draw as many takeaways for aspiring entrepreneurs or startups building already in the B2B space. So, Aditya, let's jump right into it. Take me back to the seed stage of your journey, when you started out. What was the problem statement back then? What was the pain point? What did you pick up and, start building? Of course, you started with sand, and then you sort of found your product market fit in concrete, and then so on, you built over the years with that. So take us back to that 2016 stage when you started out.
Yeah, so Shovik and me started this company in July 2016, right? And the seed actually happened in 2019. So we had 3 years of bootstrap business, right? If I look back then, right, I don't think so. Our business at that point of time, we were trying to solve some problem, right? In 2000, so we come from industry background, right? And we have been in this industry since 2010. For us, we could spot an opportunity, right? If you see, typically in B2B spaces, I'm referring more to something like 15 years back, the demand and the supply is pretty fragmented, especially on the supply side, right? There's fragmentation, there's distortion, right? And many a times you would see there is an excess capacity, right? At an SME space. I'm talking about a decade back. So we could see an opportunity which we grabbed then, where you could accelerate the demand, consolidate, and go back and integrate to the excess supply, right? So seeing an opportunity, we jumped onto it, right? Knowing the industry, working in the industry already, we started this business very much in Mumbai, based out of Mumbai, very Mumbai-centric business. And we were doing fine. Like if you see all the 3 years of our bootstrap business, we were profitable, right? And every year we grew 100% on revenue side, right? And remained profitable. So it was more for us then like an opportunity, right? You have a great opportunity. Why don't know? Okay, let's make some money, right? And then we were doing very well, as I said, during that time as well. Only in 2019, we could have a bigger vision. Maybe I would say late 2018s and early 2019s, where we realized that actually it's just beyond, this can be made beyond a lifestyle business, right? The opportunity is massive. With our limited capital that we had, like borrowed from friends and family, if the outcome could be this, what we actually make a model that is much more scalable. Can we take it beyond Mumbai? Can we go to large metropolitan cities? Can we go beyond one category? And that is when we tapped the venture capitalist funds, right? Of course, we also had a brief period where we got we were I would say at that point of time when raising capital in B2B, as you said, it's very unsexy, right? Like I still remember people saying steel and cement hi to bech rahe ho, theek hai, patthar hi to bech rahe ho, right? Why don't you should go and take money from the bank, which of course we did, right? But as an early company, there will always be a limitation of the money that you can raise from banks, right? In India, if you see, the banking ecosystem is made in a way where capital availability for MSMEs or small-time entrepreneurs is always limited then at a large scale, right? Even if I look at the collateral base, back in our early days, we used to actually give more than 100%, 125, 150% of the collateral, right? But when you grow in size, any of the corporates today who have an access to banking fund have a much better banking propositions, much better commercials, right? The capital availability in India comes at scale, right? So there was always a limitation when we were bootstrap, and for us it has to take it to next level. It was important to get a venture capitalist, be it Bangalore, be it Mumbai. We were knocking doors. I remember Shovik shooting out almost like 20 emails a day and getting a no, right? And we used to wonder, right? We are profitable startups. That was a time, that was the year when large corporations like WeWork, who were loss making, I said, I think somewhere in 2018-19, the overall sensitivity towards profits had started had begun. So a lot of cash burning startups had come under cloud. I'm sorry.
A quick poll in the audience. How many of you are into B2B business or aspiring to build? It's a good show of hands then. Probably about 20 in the room, which is a good number. We'll jump to the advice in the end from Aditya. Aditya, so Aditya, you started as an aggregator.
That's right.
Then you did backward integration, and then now you are a private label manufacturer.
That's right. So I think continuing there, quickly I'll continue. So at that time, our business model was more on aggregating demand, right, of a product. With that demand, go back to a fragmented supply, right? A lot of people sitting on excess capacity, not having a sales and operation efficient team, right? Negotiate with them on the pricing, have a certain control over the quality and on the fulfillment, and supply it back, right? We did this business, so that was the first model. I remember when we raised money from Axel. So that my first pitch deck was all about being an aggregator, right? And yes, from one city we started Bangalore, we started Pune, multiple cities. But the business for a very long time was revolving around aggregation of demand, and then you go back and bulk break, right? And take it from fragment supply. But eventually we realized that at scale this collapses, right? Because as you're building scale and you want to go wider on the product range, right? Essentially you're always selling somebody else's product. You're always selling somebody else's brand. So actually what you're building is nothing but a glorified distribution business. So that was our take and our perception on this. I'm sure yet that business can be a great business model. There will be a lot of companies who would do that and crack it. But for us, it did not suit us, right? Because I am building up the demand. I have the clientele. I have the sales team. But I'm constantly selling somebody else's product. I'm constantly dependent upon some other company, okay, and their fulfillment, their quality standard. And I can be shortchanged any time, right? Whenever there would be a mismatch on demand supply from the ecosystem, we were the most vulnerable people, right? Because if there's a great customer, right, there had been instances where our supplier would directly supply. Where there's a bad customer, would end up having a set of bad customers, right? We build up the entire thing, but what? At the end of it, you're building somebody else's brand. My customers have the loyalty towards the brand, but not to the platform. Right. For example, let's say if you're buying out, say a shoe from one of the fashion platforms, right? You have the brand loyalty to the fashion brand. It could be Reebok, it could be Skechers, it could be Puma, right? So in B2B space, right, working on this model, we started seeing limitations, right? And that is the time when we decided that, hey, if I have enough demand, right, let me do some more hard work, right? Let me push my limits and start building the capacities myself, right? Can I have my own private label, right? Can I have my own distribution network? Of course, it would be a tougher journey, right? Changing from an aggregator model to a manufacturing-based, long-tail supply chain, right? Primary, secondary demand generation would be difficult, but at the end of it, you're building businesses for decades to come, right? It's not for 2 years or 5 years. You're going to build it for as in we see this company growing beyond us. So I need to build up a very strong business model. For us, it was that eventually eventually it led to where we launch our own product categories, right? Completely private label. Of course, there are still categories on our platform which we do not manufacture ourselves, because you really cannot go back in B2B and manufacture all categories. Something like steel, right? It's very tough. It's very capital intensive, right? So today, broadly, 60 to 70% of our sales come down from our own private labels, right? We have widened the category from a pure B2B play, right? From a pure brick and mortar supply, right? We started selling even the consumer products. I think the second insight and learning, and I think second strategic decision that we took is to go wider, right? I have a consumer, so let me just give you a very simple example. Let's say, so for a B2B building material company, there are obviously three types of customers. One would be the real estate player, second would be the infra companies, right? And third would be the renovation market, right? The home improvement market, you and me who renovate our houses, right? At the end of it, when you're redoing a house, or let's talk about a real estate player who's building the entire projects, you do not require just one product, right? You cannot renovate your product just by painting your house, right? It would typically, you would want to do tile work, bath fittings, you'd want to do paint, you may want to do some furniture, right? If someone is very ambitious, they may just want to renovate the entire house and do a lot of, would need many more product categories. So our business model evolved to selling more and more products to a single customer, right? How we see it, that India has been, typically in building material space, has been a supply-centric market. What I mean by that is that every large product company in India, be it on the paint side, tile side, plywood side, right, or even steel side, they have been always focusing on getting more and more market share of the same product category, right? But when you go on the, and because they have been supply centric, right, they also built up their channels, they also built up their distribution network who are selling the same product categories. But when you go on the customer side, right, the customer actually needs more products, right? A customer is just not going to buy tiles. If he's buying tiles, he is going to need cement. If he's buying tiles, there's a very good probability he may paint his house, he may use some sanitary ware, he may change the kitchen appliances, right, the electrical appliances. But nobody was looking at that piece then, right? So our strategy evolved that we want more wallet share of the same consumer. So if I have a consumer, right, how can I sell him more and more product categories? I think that is also this distortion strategy is also, I would say, of a lot of new startups, right? You look at Zomato, right? They started with the food delivery, but the fact remains that they have been going extremely wide, right? They got into hyperlocal business, they've got into ticketing business as well. So idea is that how we look at distortion of the market is that if you have a customer, right, you really need to grab up a lot of wallet share of his, right? Because if you do not do, somebody else will do it, right? While the industry, the building material industry hasn't changed for decades, that doesn't mean it will not change, right? So if you are not going to do it, you should be prepared that somebody else will come and do it. So we started walking ahead of the curve, took the leap of faith. From a pure concrete company, we introduced a lot of consumer brands. Today, if you see, we do tiles, bath fittings, electrical, kitchen appliances, light fans, we do hardware, we do concrete, we do AC blocks, we do steel. So I think our idea is that we want to be wide enough to offer as many product categories to our consumer, and eventually build out a tech stack around it that I can do maximum cross-sell and upsell, right? There have been multiple instances where the team who cracks the order would be perhaps a paint team who has cracked the order, but once the lead is generated, the lead is brewed, the relationship is made, we have ended up supplying him 3 more product categories, right? So at scale, how we look at it is eventually every customer that would be generated by one vertical, right, would be also a customer to another vertical. So I think that is what we have been building, and so far so good, I would say. I think this idea is now pretty popularized as well. We also see a lot of other companies looking at this idea very aggressively, but I think that is also the way to go, right? And I think unless you don't put a value for your consumer on a platter, right, I think then there wouldn't be anything new, right? If we also keep selling paints as it's been sold since last three decades, or if we keep selling concrete the way it was sold, I think then it becomes becomes very difficult for a new player to challenge the incumbent, right? The old players are already established, right? It's not that the world needs more concrete players, or it's not that the India needs more of tiles players.
But if you look at traditional infra players, they have like a very deep-rooted relationship with the contractors, if we take that segment of your business. How do you create that hook for them to, switch to infra markets, private label products?
See, I think how we look at it, we have always been more focused on the fulfillment, right? If you look, I think the success in India would be by the companies who focus on fulfillment, right? Because at the end of it, a lot of product categories are commoditized, right? I think and what you really need to do as a company is to be in that target set or an acceptance set of a consumer. What I mean to say is that, let's say if you're a consumer and you want to buy cement, right? I think broadly everybody would know an Ultratech, an ACC and an Ambuja, right? So in your mind, Summit would be, okay, these are the good companies. And then there would be also some tier B companies, right? I would not like to name any. But they, in our mind, be it a tiles as a bracket, concrete as a bracket, pipes as a bracket, we have subconsciously, because of the brilliant marketing done by their companies, we have categorized as these are the good companies, like or the better off companies, and these are the okay companies. Now what happens is that once you fall in that category, the person who wins is the person who's able to do fulfillment. What I simply mean is that if I want cement, and in my mind, if ACC and Ambuja and Ultratech are at par, right, at some point or when I need it, if Ultratech is not available and Ambuja cement is available, I'll really take it, right? Because I will go for availability. The only reason is because building material space typically is largely commoditized, right? There will be very few segments where there is an extreme level of brand premium, where the aesthetics are being paid premium to, but largely, if I look at my entire business model, 70-80% is driven by fulfillment. So the key is manufacturing the right product with the right quality and being there. You need to have a long tail of distributors. You need to be there in the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. You need to be there at all B2B players' office taking up the orders, because the guy who will win will be the guy who's going to fulfill, right? So just ensure that you have built a fantastic supply chain, not only on the procurement or on the sourcing side, but also on the supply side. I think B2B business in India are largely about fulfillment, right? Needless to say, of course, your quality and the pricing has to be there, right? As it's a cutthroat market, you cannot miss on your offerings, and a right offering will have a right quality and a right price. But assuming that is cracked, the person or the company who will win will be the company who will do the fulfillment.
I think also I want to touch upon the regulation side of it. Construction infrastructure, comes with heavy compliance regulation, the GST and all of that. What is the biggest challenge for B2B businesses, and how do you navigate those regulatory hurdles?
I think the only way to navigate through regulation is to be regulated, right, in India. I really see no other way, right? Be it any business, be it B2B, B2C. My solid advice to all the entrepreneurs and young companies would be, you have to be highly compliant and regulated. I think gone are the days, where data or data tracking was not available to even to the government, or I should say, gone are the days where agencies would work in compartments, right? Today, I think GST has been one of the greatest, taxation that's been introduced by the government, right? It has brought in so much transparency, right? I think the best way is you be regulated, because at the end of it, as I said, you're building a great company, and at scale, this will matter. You really do not want to get into a cycle, okay, where you want to go back and fix your compliances or governance or regulation. So there are a lot of, I also see a lot of startups in this space who offer services on the compliance and regulation side, right? I think one must be extremely careful and thoughtful of building this out.
I think last 1 minute left. Bust some myths for entrepreneurs building in the B2C space, and your straightforward advice to them.
I think my one thing which I truly believe in, and I have often said, I think experience is extremely critical, right? I somehow feel, which many of you would not agree, I think passion is pretty much overrated, and experience in India is underrated, right? If you want to build out a great company, go there, go in that sector and work for some time, right? The more you gain experience from the sector, right? If you want to build out a food business, go and work out of there. Maybe 2 years, 3 years. You will build a solid network, right? If you want to build out a B2B business, you want to build any businesses. I think if an entrepreneur comes from an industry background, I think that will help him navigate through the entire journey, right? Because the journey is going to be tough. You'll have to attract talent, you have to build brands, you have to build supply chains, do the sales, manage, there will be a lot of perhaps rejections, you have to manage that, quality control. So it will require an industry experience. So my advice to entrepreneurs would be whatever you want to build, right? I think the more you work on the idea with someone, right, or in a company which does it, the better insights you'll have. I think ideas look great on PowerPoint presentations, ideas look great on Excel sheets, but I think execution is tough. And you need to execute, learn to execute much before, and it's always easier to learn it at someone else's company or at someone else's cost, right? Get that learning curve, it will help you a lot.
Thank you so much, Aditya. We've come to the end of the chat.
Yeah.
I hope people were able to draw some insights from Aditya's experience. Aditya, thank you so much again.
Thank you everyone.
We are all set for our next session.
Next up, we actually have a very interesting conversation. We're shifting our focus to the critical domain of intellectual property in manufacturing. We spoke about tech and AI in manufacturing.
Yes.
Now we'll talk about IP in manufacturing, and a subject, of course, that underpins innovation, growth, all of that. Yes, technology, AI, everything is in place. But what happens when your product is ready? How will you position it? What will be the IP-related regulations?
Absolutely. I think it's very important. And ladies and gentlemen, with this, we are privileged to have with us Mr. Mahakumbh with us today as the Assistant Director General of the World Intellectual Property Organization. His expertise on IP regulations will provide us with a clear roadmap on navigating this complex yet vital landscape.
Please put your hands together for Mr. Marco Eilman and stay tuned as we explore how robust IP norms can empower the manufacturing sector. Over to you.
So happy to have you here. A very warm welcome.
Good morning, everybody, and many thanks to the Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, FICSI, the Department of Promotion, Industry and International Trade, and the other organizer of this second edition of the startup Mahakumbh Bharat Innovate. Very pleased to be here and glad to represent the World Intellectual Property Organization in this exercise and having the chance to exchange with so many of you doing business not only in India, but all over the world. That certainly will give us a better understanding of what is happening here in your country and what are the needs of SMEs and startups in the field of intellectual property. WIPO has a very long and growing partnership with India in its journey to strengthen the innovation ecosystem of this country and also in supporting all innovation stakeholders, especially enterprises, SMEs and startups. We are ready to partner with different Indian authorities and institutions in order to be sure that you will receive in terms of IP and in the field of doing better on becoming more innovative companies, you will receive the different tools that are needed for you to succeed. Let me refer in this 20-25 minutes presentation to three different subjects. The first one is the innovation landscape in India. The second one is the intellectual property ecosystem in India. And the third one, and finally, is which are the opportunities for SMEs and startups in these two areas of work. Let me start. The Indian innovation ecosystem let me start qualifying that system as unique. And the reason for that is, unlike many advanced economies that rely on a top-down, centralized research and development funding models, here in India, you have pioneered a bottom-up approach with education and people-driven innovation ecosystem at the key of the Indian success. The success of this model is reflected in the Indian rise in the Global Innovation Index. The Global Innovation Index is one of those reports we produce in WIPO to track innovation worldwide and to be used as a benchmark of how innovative the different economies around the world are. So if we take the GII report of 2024, you will see how India ranked 39 globally in that report, coming from the 81 position in 2015. So only 9 years ago, in the 81 position and ranking now in the 39 position in this global ranking. But this ranking is not just a number. It reflects Indian deepening capabilities in science, technology, entrepreneurship, and creativity. And we are going to elaborate on some of those subjects later on. Importantly, India performs above expectation of its level of development. Our innovation score significantly exceeds what is predicted for this country in terms of the GDP. This tells us a very compelling story about India. India is punching above its weight in global innovation arena. And that is not only because of government policies, but it's very particular because people like you being innovative and doing business that succeed not only in your country but abroad. India has developed a world-class science and technology cluster, and something that in my view is extremely relevant is those clusters are not centralized in not only in key areas, but are dispersed all over the country. You have key of those science and technology clusters in Bengaluru, in Delhi, in Chennai, and in Mumbai. And these four clusters ranked among the top global 100 first cluster worldwide. So having four cluster among the 100 clusters that are performing well worldwide is without doubt a key achievement for India. And those clusters has breakthrough advancements in very key technological areas like digital communication and IT, engineering and computer technology, as well as automotive and transportation technologies. And in all those areas, there are people like you doing business, being innovative, and doing what you know how to do, that is success in getting that space that you are looking for as an entrepreneur. The Indian model is one of the most exciting and scalable in the world because it brings together very key features that are unique in India. One, a massive growing pool of skilled talent. The percentage of graduates in the STEM disciplines in India is among the highest globally. Over 29.3% of all graduates in 2022 were graduated in science and engineering. This is one of the highest average of people doing STEM disciplines in the world. Second, India has a strong culture of thinking, problem solving, and grassroots invention. The Atal Tinkering Labs has set up over 10,000 innovation labs in schools across India, to encourage young minds to experiment with robotics, artificial intelligence, and coding. And I can tell you that in my 2 days of this visit to India, I have been able to talk to some of those young students and see how they are prepared and equipped with a way of thinking that, without any doubt, is part of the key success of those young entrepreneurs. Third, a rapidly expanding startup ecosystem that fosters local and global innovation. And this is something that I will develop later on in my presentation, but what is key in the success of India. And finally, government-backed initiatives that support both high-tech and grassroots innovation. Skill India, Digital India, and Startup India are training millions of young Indians in digital and high-tech skill, and this is producing very concrete outcomes. But let me tell you, the beauty of this system is that it does not concentrate innovation in few cities or few institutions, allowing innovation to flourish in all corners of this country. Our preliminary work in analyzing the situation of innovation in India allow us not only to track the record of the Indian innovation ecosystem in this report that I mentioned before, the Global Innovation Index, but we are doing more detailed analysis on what we call innovation capabilities. And this initial analysis of the innovation capabilities in India tell us that the innovation ecosystem of India holds about 41% of the world innovation capabilities. The rank is, according to this innovation capability, is the number 14 globally between countries like Austria or Turkey, and 4 in the region between countries like the Republic of Korea and Singapore. In addition, during the past 20 years, India increased the diversity of the capabilities in innovation in this country, going to 50% of the diversification of those innovation capabilities, focusing mostly in acquiring technological and scientific skill. In addition, 93% of the innovation capabilities of this country can be considered stable. It means Indian skills are not dependent on external capabilities. And this possibility of relying on your own innovation capabilities gives the country particular strengths. Currently, India ranks 28 in the complexity of the capabilities that are in this country, with technology systems, nanotechnology and precision instruments are the most complex capabilities that you have in the country. However, when we analyze the composition of those innovation capabilities in India, we identify that there are a number of mid-low complex capabilities that signal great opportunity for deep tech technologies. It means moving into higher level, sophisticated capabilities in the country. So certainly there is place for the innovation ecosystem of India to improve. Let's say a few words about the entrepreneurial ecosystem. India is home to over 63 million SMEs, contributing around to 30% of the GDP of the country, 50% of the export of the country, and employing more than 100 million people. These enterprises fuel innovation, create jobs, and drive inclusive economic growth. India's startup ecosystem is now the third largest in the world, with over 100,000 startups doing business in the country. It has more than 70 unicorns that value over $193 billion according to the Global Innovation Index report of 2024, and venture capital investment that total over 44 billion in 2022. So what needs to be done in this country to sustain or to improve this impressive innovation performance? Let me explore with you a few ideas that you may want to consider to take it further. First, keep increasing the research and development spending of this country to match the rising innovation economies. We know that the expenditure on research and development has not been taking place at the pace of the GDP of the country. And particularly, we see a lot of potential in doing an extra effort in matching this growth of the country with the efforts in terms of GDP, as well as improving the participation of the private sector on that research and development. Despite having a strong private sector, only 37% of Indian total research and development funding comes from business. Second idea, expand the research, and in particular the research talent pipeline, by increasing transfer of technology to the private sector. In the different meetings we have in this today with different key policy leaders and policy designers, this has been one of those areas that we see huge potential. Let me, to conclude, mention two elements. On IP, the country is doing as well as on innovation, as I mentioned before. The number in total patent filing, trademark filing, industry and design filing shows the very important activity taking place by people like you in doing business. But despite that innovation ecosystem, despite those impressive filing, companies are not taking the full benefit of intellectual property. That's why we are here, partnering with FICCI in the establishment of business center that would allow to canalize and make available to you all the program that we have developed in Geneva. For example, tools like the IP diagnostic tool, that is an online tool that allows you to do a self-assessment of how you are doing in terms of IP, and getting particular and detailed training in how you can implement intellectual property strategies that allows you to use IP as part of your business strategy. All those activities will be undertaken in the framework of the FICCI WIPO agreement signed just yesterday. And we are here to listen from you and to work with you in order to be sure that all what we are doing in Geneva will impact and benefit Indian business of different sides, not only corporations, but also and very particular startups and SMEs in general. Thank you very much.
I think for every startup, I think is the most important thing, and we are surely looking forward, and I'm sure most of the people who are sitting here in this room, we are absolutely looking forward for this chat, for this very special discussion, and we have a lot of speakers here with us, and we are all set. I think they have already been showcased on the screen at the moment.
We've done about 900 startups. We've invested about 1,400 crores. We have about 5,000 investors on our Angel AIF. And my team actually, along with a lot of other people today, have curated the entire Maharathi challenge. And, just picking up a leaf from yesterday's conversation of the Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal, is that we had the highest number of applications in deep tech and AI. So just kind of bringing that up, because I think there is a lot of misconception that India does not have enough deep tech companies today. But with that, I'll give the mic over to Vivek.
Hi, thank you. I'm Vivek. I'm general partner at Samved VC. We are an early stage US-based fund which is investing in India, and our core thesis is that India needs to improve the productivity. So anything which helps people improve the productivities of our interest, so that's what we focus on. I've been an active angel investor for the last 10-15 years. I'm very active on the Let's Venture platform. And I had a large group of syndicate behind me, and some of us have come together to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mahavir.
Hi, I'm Mahavir. I've been angel investing for 13-14 years. Founded Rajasthan Angels, Thai India Angels, and now doing my own fund, investing in idea and early stage companies 0 to 1. Thank you.
I am Vibhor. I'm part of a fund called Capital to Be. It's an $80 million fund. And we're largely investing in science and tech companies, early stage.
Hi, I'm Vikram Vedyanathan. I lead a fund called Z47. We were called Matrix Partners India before. We manage roughly $1.5 billion in India and invest at early stages, usually check sizes of $4 to $5 million to start with. We also have an early stage platform which is an angel syndicate called DVC, where we do much smaller checks of $100,000 and so on. We're the first investors in the Ola group of companies, including Ola Electric, Razorpay. I know the Captain Fresh founder was just here, off business and so on.
So I'm going to dive straight in. I think a lot of people want to understand how do you get the first check after the coffee you have with the investor. But Vivek, you are a 0 to 1 investor, and you actually have taken a lot of bets at very early stages. Tell us, how do you build conviction when you meet the founder without a product, without any market at that point of time?
So I think for people like me, the journey starts much before we have the meeting. We already have certain thesis in mind. We keep ourselves informed, and based on that, we are on the lookout for the right founders who would solve that problem. So chances are very high that when we are meeting the founders, we already have a thesis in that domain. And then if we resonate with the founder's vision and what he's trying to do, so that's the bet we take. So at our stage, we are not looking so much at traction or the revenue or the anything like that. It's basically, if we have conviction in that space, and if we find that we resonate with the founder's vision, we like the founder, so that chemistry is there. So what I'm trying to say is that more often than not, we already have a thesis around what he is trying to do, and then we come in at that early stage. We don't have too much to go as far as data is concerned.
Okay. So I'm going to now go to Mahavir, because I want to bust some of the myths which we have about, not enough entrepreneurship in tier 2 cities. And Mahavir, you come from Jaipur, and I think Jaipur has probably seen some of the best exits in the ecosystem today, right? So tell us a little bit more of what don't we see or what don't we understand. And you've been in that space for a long time, right? So tell us, how has it evolved? And where is the kind of exit coming from a city like Jaipur?
See, I have always been professing the fact that the tier 2, tier 3 cities in India have a much better opportunity for startups to be in, with cost of living, quality of life, etc., and overheads being low. But I think Jaipur has been an anomaly because the ecosystem has come together and evolved. We as Thai, we as Rajasthan Angels started in 2000. Thai started in 2002, Angel in 2011, and we were only investing in Rajasthan-based startups for the first 3-4 years. And then the government picked up from 2015-16 onwards, and now we're still working in sync with each other, and we are getting HNIs and ultra HNIs to convert to investors. We're educating them, we're working with incubators. So I think the ecosystem has to come together, and the fact that it's close to Delhi, very easy to get into and get out of, was one other reason. The other reason I think Jaipur or Rajasthan has inherently is dhanda. We don't worry about the top line as business people. We need to be very secure on what we spend, how we spend. So we are very, very frugal with the fundraisers that have happened in the startups in Rajasthan. We've not gone overboard. The fact that we are sitting put in Jaipur and saving money in itself is a proof to that. So I think it's absolutely technology, idea, passion, everything works, but I think bottom line is very, very critical. And we've seen that through tough times in the last 5 or 6 years. So I think Jaipur has proved beyond doubt that you can scale up and be profitable, and that's what's advantage Jaipur.
So proximity to a larger city as well as somebody like, Mahavir there. Because I think you need the champions in the ecosystem, right?
Absolutely.
You need someone who's committed for a longer time.
You have to, every ecosystem has to be branded, and brand ambassadors are very, very critical. Otherwise, you don't come in the news, and you just stay put and stay quiet. So I think it's very important to market yourselves. And Jaipur as a city, all of us collectively as investors have marketed well and consistently at every level. So I think that's an advantage too.
Yeah. So now coming to Vibhor, you have a very interesting title on LinkedIn which says Science and Tech Investor. And since we are talking about early stage, and off stage you talked about having made 30 investments, tell us as a deep tech investor, how do you decide when there is no product, when there is very little, because deep tech is a long game, right? We all understand it requires more patient capital. Talk a little bit about, if I am a deep tech investor as a founder, how do I pitch to Vibhor and what would make him write the check to me?
So a couple of things, one, I've been a techie for most of my life, right? And I've been doing investing only for the last 5 years. So it's sort of organic for me to look at the science and tech piece first. So I have a thesis. So the kind of founders I'm looking for is one, like Vivek said, who are in line with the thesis. But I'm more intrigued by the founders who are challenging that thesis, right? And I'll read a lot of science and tech journals to understand what's happening in the world. And I love the 60s and the 70s, the hippie culture, because a lot of brilliant papers were written then, which are now becoming plausible and implementable because of the advancements in hardware and software alike. So one is, are people looking at a problem that is worth solving? Right? Because a lot of deep tech founders also have a solution-first approach. Hey, I did my thesis in this subject, I went deep in this, and I think this is awesome, and I'm building a company around it. Yeah. Right? I'd rather that the founder is looking at a problem first, and whether or not the solution fits the glove, etc. Right? One is that. Second is, will the science work or not? Because the first part of failure is the science won't work. Right? And how far will that happen down the line? And can we as early stage investors carry the company till then, when there is a product in sight? And then comes the challenge of commercialization, revenue, etc., which is a far cry in the early days. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a little more complex than what you're trying to tell us. And I think, we have to just kind of start probably meeting more deep tech founders as investors so that you're able to evaluate. Like I was on the jury of the deep tech and the AI panel, and almost 50% of the companies we kind of marked them as not deep tech. So I think founders like to put that label, but when you go one level deeper, you're like, you're not building a deep tech company. And I think that is important as a founder, not to fall into the wrong category, right? Probably if that startup had applied in a different category, they might have been shortlisted, right?
So one point is there a distinguishable IP there or not?
Yes. Now coming to Vikram, and we spoke about DVC and the pre-seed and the, angel network you're building. I'm just curious if you can talk to us about, how do you actually identify a pre-seed company? And I want to go through that question again and again because I think each of us will have a very different insight into actually how do I go from coffee to check?
Sure. See, we actually, on DVC, we actually work with a network of angels. And each of you, as you go through your journeys, I'm amazed, like each of you are super nodes in your network, right? And there are certain pockets that you're very well known in. And I think for any sort of pre-seed founder, it's actually great to go find that super node who's your champion in the ecosystem. And at least to reach large funds like us, that is actually the best route. And to have that champion and that super node. Now, personally for me, when I meet a founder, what actually works for me, the first is actually, like Vibhor was saying, start with that pain point. There is a deep pain point in the world that you've identified, and that it is not a pain point restricted to 5 people, but actually it affects a large set of people in some way. That's the first thing. And putting that shared context, a lot of the times the VC will not, or the investor will not have that shared context that you have on how big a pain point that is, and bring that pain point to life. That's usually how that conversation starts. The second is then the unique solution and why they are best suited. Something, right, that has given them some edge, and a lot of founders miss that in that conversation, right? Bringing yourself to that conversation, saying, this is my edge in terms of solving this unique pain point in some way. And then it is, found this pain point, I have this edge, and then paint a picture of the world. Once I'm done, essentially fixing the world, this is what the world will look like. That's sort of the perfect sort of conversation. Through all of that, what I'm looking for is some deep curiosity, a way in which I can see that this person is going to grow very fast, even if they're very young, because that's what you're betting on through that journey. And then some commercial instincts, even if they're a very technical founder, some commercial instincts early on.
So I'm just curious here, because we're talking so much about networking, meeting people, knowing the right people, getting the right introductions. What do you see the difference between a male and a female founder? Like, where are women advantaged or disadvantaged in this entire early stage?
I think the overall trait that you're looking for, more than just networking, is being highly resourceful. Right? The difference between a founder and a manager is founder sets goals and then figures out what resources to get.
Yes.
And this network is one of those resources, right? Sometimes it's capital, sometimes it's network capital, it's just a resource that you're looking to get and so on. I do think, and my wife is in the room and she leads a very large part of PhonePe. And so I do think that women have certain advantages, but they miss some of the old boys network which isn't there. So they miss the natural network capital, and they have to fight a little bit harder to actually build that network capital in some way. I think there are communities that are helping, but I do think overall as an ecosystem, a lot more needs to get done.
You're just being polite. I think the women have to work probably a lot more harder, because I think it's still a very bro club culture in investing today, right? There are very few. I mean, we are still building that up, and I think times are changing. But
Yeah. I think all
there is still a long effort.
I would say all female founders in my network, as well as in our angel group and so on, all say that, like you said, you use the word polite, but maybe I don't understand the levels of pain point enough, and I think that is true, right? Because I don't have an intuitive understanding of that.
Yeah.
It is true that there is a large gap, but it is true that overall women founders have raised less money and their valuations are less.
Yeah.
So you can see that it is a problem in the ecosystem.
Yeah, but I think things are also changing, which I always tell my women founders, is that the customer does not know whether it's a male or a female who's built the company, right? So if you can build a product which has customer love, I think you will win the market. I mean, why would investors not invest in a good business, right? I don't think that the bias is so strong today, right? So I think it is about focusing on this problem market, problem solution, right? Like, what are you trying to build? How are you building the business? I think, and then eventually you will get the attention.
Yeah, so we backed 2 female founders in the recent past. One is Ruchi, who's the founder of Oxizo,
Yes.
and Romita, who's the founder of Foxtail. I would say they just went out and created that network for themselves.
Yes.
They did have the advantage of being from some large networks like McKinsey and IIT, but then they just built on that.
Absolutely. So Vivek, if I were to come back to you, if a founder is pitching, and if you have to walk away from a conversation, what is that one thing which will just say, this is a red flag and I don't want to do this?
See, for me, when I'm investing, what I want is the problem that it's trying to solve and whether you will scale or not. And for me, the scale is basically, can I visualize a repeatable, scalable model that if you're able to solve, there are many such customers that you'll be able to go after. So what happens, especially, and that has happened lately, is that sometimes you get very good founders with very good solutions, but the validation has come from a one-off client which will not be repeatable, scalable. They'll get some validation from a CSR grant, or they will have some thing which has worked with a government, and they feel that gives them the right to win. So, they'll come back and say, we have this product which has been validated because they have got this grant or they have this order from the government. And you go deeper into it and then you realize that though they may be saying that they have certain X amount of revenue, the scalable part of that revenue or the repeatable part of that revenue is minuscule.
So basically some validation of repeatability and moving towards that product.
Yeah, I mean, that is what you need to concentrate on. Don't concentrate on this one-off things and take that as your right to win and start tom-tomming to your investors because I've got this. You fund us. And when you look at the things which is going to be the long grind, you see that the focus is not there or that is not on their radar, how difficult the life is. So that is something that puts you off. They are going to chase one large customer rather than something which will scale. So that is something that so if somebody comes and says, I have this one customer or this one validation which I find will not be repeatable, that's a red flag for me.
So can we just go across, because I think this is an important point for founders, like what is just kosher and don't come to me.
So I'll tell you one red flag that I have is that actually an investor told me to do this or a VC said this. Right?
Yes.
And because it happens, and I understand that as founders you go to VC meetings and you think, hey, this investor actually likely knows best. But do not outsource your judgment to investors, because the investor is there for 30 minutes, and usually, and I will say it with all respect to all of our fellow investors, we know a lot less about we know almost next to nothing about your business versus you.
Absolutely.
So actually what you should be really focused on in making decisions is actually your consumer, your customer, what's happening with that product market fit, and bring that insight into the room. So one red flag for me is, when I asked what happened, they said, oh, this investor gave us feedback, so we did this. That is absolutely not what you should be doing.
So this is always an advice or a thought we tell our founders is that, the VC does not know everything, right? And I think a lot of people outside your core team will not know the business as well as you will know it. Vibhor?
Buzzwords.
Yes.
The moment somebody says we're an AI company, I have a null pointer exception. And the other thing is over-amplifying the solution in your own head, right? And undermining direct or indirect competitive landscapes.
Yes.
Right? Because everything is very nuanced, and all of a sudden you'll have a left field ball hitting you, and you would not know what to do. So just a very, very deep understanding of the entire landscape is something very essential in my view.
Yeah. Mahavir?
I agree with what everyone said, but in addition to that, it's not one red flag, it's a combination of many red flags. I think not knowing your product, your projections, your numbers, you have to live, breathe, eat, sleep your startup. These guys over-exaggerate and oversell or undersell, whatever. They're clueless when it comes to numbers, and whether an investor has told them or a chartered accountant has told them or someone has told them this is a valuation, they have no justification or reasoning to give when you say, why are you asking for so much of valuation, and why do you need 5 crores and why not 2 crores? They are not sure of where they're going in the next 2-3 years, because they've just gathered and mustered things, cut, copy, paste, and heard from people and put everything together. Just because they're raising 5 crores does not make their valuation to be 50 crores.
Yes.
There has to be justification on everything, and not knowing all of that is also a red flag. That means that person is just raising money for the sake of raising money, and not for doing the business that he's supposed to be doing.
So for me personally, the red flag is just ethical boundaries, right? I think there are some founders who start with a number in the beginning of the meeting. By the time they've ended the meeting, the numbers have changed. And they are not able to listen, right? So when you tell them something, the reaction is, it's such great feedback and I love what you're saying. And I'm like, okay, we've just spent 30 minutes today, right? And I think just getting influence and trying to be the pleaser in the meeting, I think those are all just like, you don't want to work with such people in the long term, right?
There's lack of conviction, actually.
Yes, lack of conviction. I think we have like 5 minutes left, so I wanted to open it up for questions, but just one last rapid fire, okay? TAM or team?
Team, any day. Team is much more important because TAM will be decided by how the team executes.
Yeah. What about you, Mahavir?
Oh, obviously. I don't even look at the Sam, Tam, Tom slide at all. I don't care. It's a team.
Yeah. For you, what about product or or the idea? Because it is deep tech, right? So I'm still curious, how does early stage happen in deep tech?
The possibility of that idea becoming a product.
Okay, that's great. And about you, single founder or multiple founder teams?
Depends on the stage. It's early founders, then I would say having a couple of founders. I mean, there is a thing about, running. If you want to run fast, you go alone. If you want to run far, you go together. So
Absolutely. But now I'm going to open it up for questions. I'm sure there are a lot of people who have questions. Can we pass the mic around?
All right. Where do we go?
Keep your questions short because I want to have at least 3 questions.
Yeah, sure. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you identify the right product fit? Whenever you are having a bet with a founder, or maybe you are having a bet with a particular product, so how can you judge in maybe a one-line conversation?
Oh, just by sheer experience. We listen to pitches every single day, and we quickly know what will work, what will not work in a certain idea. So it's very, very quick and very brief for me, at least. I mean, I know what I want. I know where I want to invest. I know, in my opinion, what will work or not work. So I'm very quick. Depends on, based upon experience.
I think if you want to bring it to life, I would say there has to be product love. That some user suddenly is living some part of their life on your product. And it is just palpable, like he said, that that user loves your product.
Vivek, you had some
So, I'd been an investor, and for me that's the whole question, when has the founder moved from MVP to market fit? And my hack is that if I talk to a founder and and he's talking about the features that he's going to add, I know that he's still in the discovery phase. The moment founder starts talking about the customers and expansion, I know that they have found the market fit. So what I've realized the hard way is that when you're talking to the founders, the vocabulary of the founder changes when they're talking to investors if they found the market fit.
Great.
Awesome. That's a great point.
Thank you so much for sharing your answers.
Yeah, one more question because I have one question for the panel at the end.
Hello, my question is regarding legal tech. As a platform is offering online notarizations to the Indian public, so who would be a better fit for to get the investment, the government or because a lot of groups are showing interest, but who do we sit with in these cases?
Legal tech? Did you say legal tech?
Yes.
And what the question was?
Bringing digital notarizations to the general public, to the NBFCs, to the government, to the everything.
So my advice is always keep the government as the next option once you find your real customer.
Last option, sorry,
Last
not next.
option.
Well, the platform is already online and we are just searching for the investors. So government is the first option to go to?
I would not recommend that. I think you have to find customers who will pay quickly, right? Because there is a process of getting approved through the government machinery.
Yeah, we have already done it.
So then you should go through that. Whatever works best for you as a founder. So coming back to this, the last question I have, since we spoke about going to the government, and this question is specifically for Vibhor, right? If we were to create a process where we say in the next 5 years we want to strengthen the deep tech and AI ecosystem of India because that's where we believe value creation will happen. I actually think the last 10 years what has happened is great because it has created better economy for the people who would not have access to capital, right? So in terms of, all the food sharing apps and all the ride sharing apps, all that has actually created employment. It has started to build the flywheel of the economic momentum in the country, right? But if I were to look at the next 5 years and if I were to take one proposal to the government, Vibhor, you have to represent us today.
Putting me in a spot. Bunch of things actually. First thing is what you just said. Change the investor sentiment about government as a customer.
Yes.
Right? Most deep tech companies that I meet, government would probably be the first and only customer that they will have. There is no running away from that. Defense. Most of the innovation in the West started from defense. The internet came from defense, right? in the US, in Europe, people are happy that you're working with the government because that means it'll see through.
Yes.
Commercialization will happen.
Yes.
It isn't the case in India. So first thing that has to change is that. Second thing I believe is that the way we have PhD done in our country has to change. Right? There is basic research, there is applied research, and there is user-based research. I think a lot of emphasis has to be on applied research and user-based research. Which are the problems worth solving? You don't need citations in papers, you need PhD to entrepreneurship pathways.
Got it.
You know. The third thing is we need a blended stack of capital. If you look at deep tech, Series A and Series B beyond, nobody's picking up these companies for the heavy lifting.
Yes.
Show me traction, show me, commercialization. If there was any commercialization, they wouldn't need venture capital so much, right? And deep tech is not something like your B2B and B2C, pump in more money and things will happen, right? So therefore, you need a blended stack of capital where you have equity, you have debt, you have MSME kind of loans that the government provides, because these are, again, after a point in time, they will mimic the classic manufacturing paradigm, most of these companies. I mean, top three in my view.
And just again an observation, because I was on the AI deep tech jury, 30% of the companies were bootstrapped who actually came to us, and they've done pretty good traction. Right, so I think there is that momentum building up, but anybody has closing thoughts here on the panel?
I share Vibhor's, I would say, historical pessimism on where the government is in terms of as a customer and so on. But we've seen some of this change, right? And I think we are the first investor in Ola Electric, which is essentially started as a EV play, then became a battery play and so on. I don't think that could have been possible without the debt capital balance sheet, and I think it's very important what Vibhor said. As a founder, you have to think of not just equity funding, but multiple other ways of building your balance sheet in order to go after this opportunity. But then the PLI opportunity showed up. That's what made that entire thing show up, right? So as a founder, to think of these different capital bases, but I do think, I used to be there saying government is the last customer, but what I've seen with, for example, the payments ecosystem actually now starting to get all the subsidies on time on a quarterly basis, as well as the EV ecosystem starting to happen, I think some of this is changing. But I also work for an Israeli startup. Everything came out of defense. We don't have that talent density and ecosystem.
You have anything to add here?
I mean, it might have come out of defense, but drone tech was killed in India because of dependence on government. I think we were lagging behind. Blockchain, with the stigma of crypto, is kind of stuck because of all of these things, and there's so much that blockchain can do. I think I somehow feel that from land records to birth, death, whatever degrees, there's so much that the government can help enable deep tech, but I don't see that happening for some reason or the other. And that is where, as an early stage investor, I become wary of a startup or a deep tech company that will depend on a government or governments across the world. So it is a challenge. I don't know if these 3 points will help solve it, but a lot of shift has to happen.
Anything to add, Vivek?
Yes, I work very closely with the incubators at various IITs, from IIT Madras to IIT Kanpur, and now even Plaksha universities. And I think that thing is changing, because deep tech, if you're talking about the startups, at the end of the day, the first research has to happen. It's only once you have that, what the fundamental research is there, that will translate into some kind of product. So I think that is changing. I work very closely with IIT Kanpur, and some of the startups there in the deep tech are really interesting. We are working with Plaksha also. We have this center of excellence. They have the concept of grand challenges, which we are where the deep research is going on to identify the right problems and solving that. So that, I think the university will have to be a big part of the research, the deep tech ecosystem.
Yeah, so just as a closing note, I'm part of the organizing committee of Startup Mahakumbh, and I've seen the immense effort selflessly which everybody has put in, because we believe that this decade belongs to India, right?
Absolutely.
And it's great that we are having these very difficult conversations and challenging each other, instead of, all of us coming and appreciating each other and not talking about the issues that matter. So thank you for all of you for taking the time out, and it has been a pleasure moderating this session.
Thank you, Shan.
Thank you, Shan.
Karunya,
I want to build
are you getting closer towards your check?
Yes, I am, and I'm going to build on what Mr. Sharma just said. पैसा सब कुछ है, and पैसे के लिए finances and finances के लिए fintech. That's where I'd like to segue, because we cannot talk about startups or innovation or making money or making something as small as just a QR card payment for a coffee in the morning without talking about fintech. So,
as Mr. Kant mentioned in the morning, I mean, now it has become so easy. You talk about insurance, you talk about online payments. Within just 30 seconds, 1 minute, you can probably just make any transaction throughout the world.
Absolutely.
And in India, the kind of the technology that we are watching, I think we have a long way to go.
Trust product, but I think Sachin, you've spoken about technology. So what are you focusing on over the next 5 years, 5-6 years?
So the next 5 to 6 years are going to look very different from the last 20 years. I think one big thing that is coming to all of us is AI, and how we use that to...
Do you want to give one example of how AI has changed Navi over the past year?
Yeah, I think there are a few examples of that. I think most of our customer support is automated through GenAI. In a lot of other operational areas, quality control, etc., there is a lot of usage of AI. I see people every day answering questions through AI. I mean, getting answers to questions through AI. Like, for example, if you wanted to know what are the trends of payments ecosystem trending in Brazil over the last 10 years, so that you can take some decisions based on that in India, and that's an important input to your decision making here. Earlier, it was impossible to find that. I mean, or very hard. You have to spend hours, or you have to commission a study. Now you can do research like that and get a decent quality answer without doing all of that work. Apart from that, I think coding, software engineering is going to get automated quite significantly. That's a big kind of tsunami, I think, that is coming to all of us. I mean, close to 25-30% of our code is already automated. But yeah, over time, I think it will be
quite real. I think. I think it's across the board. But I think, Alok, one follow up on what you mentioned about customers, Indian customers and their behavior with insurance. I think all of us are also suspects and victims of that. But how does an Indian customer really look at insurance? Because I think because there is trust, there is also this delayed gratification with insurance, right? Because you don't really know you need insurance unless you really come across that situation. So how does one really actually buy insurance? What is that journey like, and how will that evolve? Because more and more people are getting educated, more and more people are getting aware. But why is that penetration not going up, even though there is awareness today?
So two parts. I think one, the product itself is very unique, as you rightly said. No instant gratification. It is forcing you to spend 1 hour thinking about what can go wrong in your life. Right. And somewhere we all think that जो होगा किसी और को होगा, मुझे नहीं होगा, मैं तो healthy हूँ, मैं तो ठीक हूँ. Especially at a young age, you don't really worry too much about those things unless you see someone in your vicinity, कोई friend, family, colleague going through some bad experience, and suddenly it strikes, यार ये तो important है. Now, luckily, whenever that person is thinking ये important है, they come to us. So I can hand on heart say 100% of the people in India, when they think they have to buy insurance, will come to Policybazaar on their own. But this is something they'll forget after 3-4 weeks again. वो 3-4 हफ्ते ही होते हैं जिसमें आदमी के दिमाग में रहता है, and he wants to buy at that time. And that's the time transaction can happen or cannot happen. So you do whatever you have to do. The biggest challenge today, if we look at just the middle class India, which arguably is about 8 to 10 crore households, or maybe 35 to 40 crore individuals. The penetration for term insurance is about 6% in household terms, and in life terms, health is maybe about 10% or 12%. So why other people are not buying? Because, as I said, one lot of time awareness है कि लेने की जरूरत है. ये awareness है तो आदमी कहते हैं claim तो मिलेगा नहीं, मिलेगा तो बहुत painful तरीके से मिलेगा. So if you don't have the trust in the claim process, why should you put money today? तो वो जब तक solve नहीं करेगी industry, तब तक कुछ नहीं हो सकता है. But let's like to add to what Sachin was also saying about AI. देखो हम सब जितने भी काम करेंगे ना किसी भी कंपनी में, कोई भी काम करोगे आप जिंदगी में, you can only influence 3 things in any company. या तो रेवेन्यू बढ़ाओगे,
या कॉस्ट कम करोगे, एफिशिएंसी लाओगे, या सर्विस अच्छी करोगे कस्टमर के लिए. इसके अलावा किसी का कोई काम होता नहीं कंपनी के अंदर. ये तीन ही काम होते हैं. एंड AI विल हैव अ वेरी हाई इम्पैक्ट ऑन द सर्विस ऑन डे वन. धीरे धीरे कॉस्ट एफिशिएंसी पे भी आ रहा है. रेवेन्यू इम्पैक्ट अभी इतना नहीं आ पाया है, थोड़ा फ्रॉड कंट्रोल वगैरह आ रहा है फिनटेक में, बट रेवेन्यू साइड अभी दूर है. बट सर्विस विल गेट ऑटोमेटेड वेरी वेरी फास्ट. एफिशिएंसी विल स्टार्ट टू कम इन ऑल्सो नेक्स्ट 5 years इन अ बिग वे. तो कभी ना कभी रेवेन्यू भी आएगा.
Got it. So I think we have a minute. I'm only going to ask one question to all of you. Same question. I know all of you have had amazing these journeys. I think everybody kind of glorifies this journey, but I'm sure there have been tough times where people have supported you. So if all of you can name one person, or say, anybody, close family, friend, whoever, who supported you during those tough times, I'm sure you'd want to kind of give them that visibility also. So if you want to take a few seconds and probably talk about anybody who's helped you during those tough times.
I call Ravi Adusumali, who's an Elevation Capital investor, as my co-founder, and I call him for the single reason that it truly is that I have true privilege of calling him as my friend, my board member, my shareholder, and the person I reach up to. So always, anytime, high time, low time, every time.
I think Jitendra believes in this, that you definitely need a co-founder. I've heard him say it multiple times. So who is it?
Yeah, so I have two people in my life who support me whenever I am in doubt. So one is my wife, of course.
Are you forced to say it?
No, not. But that's the reality. So, and the second person is Amrish, Pine Lab CEO. So we were co-founders in Citrus, and the journey was so good that we went through so much tough times during Citrus days. So generally the bonding tends to happen, and then we sort of understand the decision-making framework of each other. So it's easier to consult that way.
Right. Sachin?
Yeah, so I learned business very early in my life. Essentially, I come from a business family, and like not big businesses, small businesses based in Punjab, Chandigarh. And one of my uncles, who was my father's elder brother, he was a big influence on me. I think I learned about work ethic, integrity, and responsibility from him, which I think stayed with me for quite a bit. Of course, he's now no more, but his influence stays on in the whole family, actually, quite a bit.
Alok?
I think the first name I would like to say, actually, Yashish, my co-founder. Personally, we are chalk and cheese, very, very different personalities, very, very different outlook for everything that we do. But we are joined at the hip for 17 years, 18 years now. So it worked out very well for us. And outside of two of us, maybe then it's Sanjeev Bikchandani from InfoEdge. He was the first person to put in the check. And today also for a lot of things we reach out to him for advice, and we have learned a lot directly and indirectly both. Sometimes his actions have how he's built Naukri and how he's built the team and culture there as influencers. So yeah, these two people maybe.
So one final question, Sachin, Jiten, any plans of listing anytime soon, joining the other two stalwarts in the public markets?
At least for me personally, very far away. So I don't think so. I have any aspiration to come close to Vijay.
In public market, nobody is close or far.
So for us, we have reached a stage where actually we have like 20 million users monthly active, 40 million ever used on the platform. It's gone to a very decent stage. Now we are at a place where we can use more capital. And I think public markets is the best source of capital. That's what I believe. If you can handle the pain or what comes with it, I think. So definitely the plan is to go FY26. Ideally, we would like to be IPO'd if we can.
So there we go. I think people at the back, I think they're all recording. So I think we're good to go. I think thank you so much, everybody. Big round of applause for all the contributions.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are all set for our next panel discussion. Startup-driven economic transformation, building $1 trillion digital economy. Ladies and gentlemen, हमारे साथ we're going to have on stage a moderator, Ms. Shweta Rajpal Kohli, President and CEO, Startup Policy Forum. Please give a big hand for her, everyone.
Thank you so much. I know we had a power-packed panel before that, and star founders. So from star founders to stars in the government ecosystem, it's my honor and privilege to be moderating this session. How can startups power $1 trillion digital economy? And you know why I'm super excited about this session? I think 2 reasons. It is the only Sarkari panel, as we can call it. So, you know, if you want to know what the Sarkar is thinking, what the government's thinking, and how the government's enabling startups, this is the session where you're going to hear it all. And there's one other special reason why I'm excited about moderating this session, because for once, you know, we have diversity of a different kind. So thank you, Abhishek Singh ji, for being the diversity candidate this time on the panel. And I'm super, I would say, proud to have 2 women leaders here. You know, we've got Aarti Bhatnagar, Special Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And in fact, she has got multiple portfolios. So simply a powerhouse in the Indian government and is driving so many initiatives. Manmeet Nanda, Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and someone I've had the pleasure of working very closely in her earlier avatar of dealing with startups at DPIIT and holding multiple portfolios, and she's someone who understands this ecosystem very well. And I would say, in some ways, the person sitting next to me is the man of the moment for India. Abhishek Singh, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MeitY. But more importantly, he's holding the dual charge as the CEO of India AI Mission. And of course, who doesn't want to know what's going on in AI right now and what's going on as far as India and AI is concerned. So let me start by actually getting him to answer exactly that. Mr. Singh, we know that the world is watching India right now on AI. There is almost palpable excitement and energy about India moving forward in the AI ecosystem. Share with us everything that the government's doing to enable this, and what is it that the audience sitting here in the room should watch out for?
See, like, thank you for having me here. And in fact, as you rightly said, the world is looking at India. The world is looking at India providing leadership in the AI story that is unfolding. We have shown what digital public infrastructure can do, and there's a lot of expectations, especially with the talent that we have in the digital space. In fact, if you look at the Stanford AI Index, it rates India as the #1 in AI skill penetration. If you look at the number of GitHub AI projects, we contribute 24% of the projects on GitHub, the projects contributed by Indians. So there is a lot of expectations. So similar to ensure that we are able to reach their potential, because currently we are much behind US and China when it comes to building AI models or AI applications. So the government did examine what were the gaps in our AI story, and it was felt that we need to provide compute infrastructure, we need to provide data sets, we need to provide funding for foundational model, we need to provide funding for startups who are working in this field, because very often AI and deep tech requires patient capital. It's not that you invest X and you get a return in 2 to 3 years. Sometimes you have to wait for long. So under that, India AI Mission was conceptualized, a funding of almost $1.2 billion, 10,372 crores to be precise, which seeks to provide compute. We have already empaneled 10 service providers, 14,000 GPUs are available for at a very low cost, 115 rupees per GPU per hour, and over and above this, government provides 40% support. So the net cost for GPUs for a startup is less than $1, 67 rupees per GPU per hour, which ensures that entrepreneurs, startups, researchers working on AI models and applications can access that. We set up a platform called AI Kosh, which is providing data sets, tools and models. More than 400 data sets are available there, and ultimately data sets is something that you require along with talent and compute to build AI applications. We also publish a call for proposals of foundation models, because there is a lot of expectations of everyone that China has come with DeepSeek. When will India come up with foundation models? So we have got almost 200 proposals for building India foundation models. The first set of proposals is likely to be finalized, that will be funded by the government within the next 2 weeks. And we hope that these companies will be able to work on, with the support provided, to build a foundation model that is trained on India data sets very soon. We also have other pillars in the India AI mission where we are providing support for skilling, we are providing fellowships for undergrad students or master's students and for research scholars. We are setting up a fund of funds and working with accelerators, incubators to provide funding support to startups. We are also building tools for safe and trusted AI. Then application development is again another focus area wherein we did publish an innovation challenge across 5 themes of agriculture, healthcare, learning disabilities, governance and climate change, and we got 900 applications, out of which 30 were selected and given the first stage of about 25 lakhs by Honorable Minister on 6th of March, and more challenges coming in. So government is trying to provide support at all levels for data sets, for compute, for foundation model, for applications, for building safe and trusted AI to ensure that our startups, our researchers come up to the expectations and build something that we can truly call Indian and state-of-the-art.
Thank you. That's a lot happening, and clearly you're driving all of it, and we know the next few months are going to be super exciting. And I think what most people say is that India may get it late, but it gets it right. And I think that's the moment everyone's waiting for. And even though we may not see an immediate LLM model coming up, but what we're definitely seeing is vast innovation when it comes to AI use cases and adoption of AI, and something that I can vouch for. There's the Startup Policy Forum. We have so many of the high growth startups as our members, and each day we're seeing AI adoption at a transformative pace. But I think this is also a moment to pause and reflect on the kind of journey of startups we've seen so far. And while we talk about the gaps, as you've rightly identified, and policymakers like you ensuring that we stay ahead of the curve and we're able to plug those gaps, let's first acknowledge the progress. And Aarti ma'am, I'd like you to come in here, because just the sheer explosion of the Indian startup ecosystem, just the fact that we have come in the last 9 years, ever since Prime Minister Modi announced Startup India as a major flagship initiative, a major plank, just the fact that we've seen so much innovation, so much progress, so much success of the startup ecosystem. Could you share with us where India stands today in that startup journey?
So I think after the very sterler kind of a panel that we had before us, the speakers who were actually the stalwarts of the startup ecosystem, I think now getting the kind of a Sarkari point of view of what we've been able to do till now in this 9 years of journey when we started in 2016, I think there are some statistics which should be of interest to all of you. Now we've become the 3rd largest startup unicorn nation in the world. There are 118 unicorns with a total valuation of over 354 billion plus USD. And the unicorns who have made the largest impact is from a 13 times increase, that is from 8 in 2015 to 118 in 2025. So I think this is something that we are very proud of having, this kind of ecosystem which has now come up in the country. So these are the things which I wanted to share with you all, that some more statistics I think which should be of interest is that we've issued 1,64,554 startup certificates, and these have created jobs of 18 lakh plus. The average number of employees per startup is somewhere 11, and the number of states who have a startup policy, it started as 4 in 2016, and now we have 31 states and UTs who have a dedicated startup policy. So this is the kind of achievement that we've got. More than that, I think there is something that we need to understand, that while we may have certain schemes which were giving the right nudge to the developing a startup system, whether it was our startup seed fund or it was our fund of funds scheme, the very important thing is that the environment was created where the startups were able to flourish. But I think we need to go further, because everything, it's a matter of relativity. as they say, the relativity principle is very important. So it's very important also to look at what the other countries have done and where are we in this entire sector, in this entire ecosystem. So that is where we are not resting on our laurels. We in the government have been working on further schemes. So we have, which was just announced in this budget for this financial year, we have a fund of fund 2.0, where another 10,000 crores have been given, which will be able to fund startups, through the AIFs and other means, other venture capitalists and all. The initial 10,000 tranche which was given earlier, 5 years back, has completely been utilized, and now we've got another infusion of capital. So these are some of the things which I thought I must share with you all. And as far as I just wanted to take another few seconds to talk about the startup Mahakumbh, where we are sitting today. It's the second day. And, I'm really loving this kind of vibrancy and the enthusiasm and the number of footfalls which I'm seeing, which is exponentially grown from last year when we had the first edition. So I think that is a very, very happy situation. And I think it is a time for collaboration, for learning, for, showcasing what you have, and also trying to adopt whatever you've learned so that we can, further go on to the next stage.
All right, Manmeet Nanda, ma'am, you've seen this ecosystem very, very closely in your previous roles, and now you're also driving social inclusion in many ways. I'd like to pose twin questions to you. First, your understanding of the ecosystem and the fact that we have so-called 100+ unicorns, but we're now talking about the next wave of innovation, Startup India 2.0 in some ways, and the fact that now we need to ensure that we're seeing innovation across deep tech, across AI, across many other sectors. What do you think the government can do to enable this? And two, we also want this startup magic to spread well beyond the metros and the tier 1 cities. So how do we take it to tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and especially to something that is within your mandate, the social inclusion part, and I would say empowerment. If you could shed light on how you're thinking about that.
Thank you, Shweta, and thank you for having me here. Feels great to be part of the community that is so vibrant, so young, energetic, and always throwing great challenges. Yes, that's true. We have come a long way, but there's so much more to do. And transforming India into the 1 trillion economy that we want to be, the answer lies in two major ecosystems. That is one, the startups that we all are here sitting and being a part of and being proud of, the unicorns, and of course the MSMEs. They are the backbone of this country. And MSMEs in a very basic way are or have been the true startups of the Indian economy so far. We need to carry what Aarti ma'am mentioned and what Sir mentioned, carry those reforms further. We need to go beyond the metro cities, and we have been, but encouraging tier 2, tier 3 startups more. And inclusion should be a matter of design and not chance like we have on the stage today. Inclusion, as I see, like I'm looking at a different sector now, people with disabilities. There are so many startups that are doing such commendable work to ease and to progress and transform the lives of people with disabilities. I am shocked to see that there are devices available in the market where a completely vision impaired person has a keyboard that can convert what is on text on the screen into Braille, helps him read that, not audio, but helps him read that in Braille. He can type back on that keyboard onto the desktop and gets on to an English language that most of us understand. So reform journey needs to continue. The government, industry, academia relationship needs to be greatly strengthened. What we have shown in our startups by changing the way we eat, changing the way we buy things or we sell things,
it's what India has shown to the world. I mean, we are a great model for everyone, and I think this needs to continue. Further reforms by the government, continuation of the fund of fund schemes, the startup, the seed incubations startup fund, big proponent of that, because our startups need the hand-holding. AI is the future, it's the present, is the future. Every day I think I will try and figure out greater, things that I can learn on Grok. Perplexity, AI throws me another ball. So I need help, sir, on teaching government bureaucrats like us also to pick up our rate of learning for AI and what the startup world can throw on to us. So
Well, that's an interesting one, Abhishek sir, now, and I think I'd like you to respond to what Manmeet ma'am said.
Yes, see, like I fully agree. Like, of course, we all agree that AI is the in thing, and we all are using it, playing with it. But AI goes beyond just writing poems or creating content by using or Ghibli images has become popular on Chat GPT.
And controversial.
No, but in fact, OpenAI has been like since last 2-3 days they have been tweeting about the India is the place. But that's because they are seeing it as a market. But we need to go beyond that by just using it for creating funny things or cartoons or poems or jokes. We need to realize that AI can transform things, as Manmeet mentioned. We did this innovation challenge for learning disabilities, and the kind of solutions that we got, which can help detect autism, which can help solve problems for dyslexia, which can solve problems for dyscalculia, are amazing. Helping people, blind people to see, navigate, helping deaf and dumb to hearing impaired people to communicate better. So there are multiple tools. AI is transforming agriculture. AI is transforming healthcare. So what we have seen is that, and what we are hearing and what we expect is that India will come up with a voice-based LLM, which would ensure that with voice you will be able to seek information services. And in India, that will empower the 500 million people who are not connected to the internet there. So the potential of AI is huge, but at the same time, what she mentioned towards the end, that how do we build in capacities within the government and outside? How do we ensure that we are able to use these tools for improving productivity at all levels, and more so in government? So like I got Karamyogi platform has got, in fact, 2 of their team members, I see them in the audience here also today. So it has got a lot of courses on emerging tech, on AI, on Chat GPT, on Gemini, for using AI in healthcare, on various domains. And happy to say that those courses are one of the most consumed courses on the platform. So there is an effort within the government to improve capacities. There is an effort within the industry to use AI to build applications. What we need is to scale up many of these applications. They should not just remain pilots or proof of concepts. How we can take them to logical end and ensure that more and more people benefit from them. That's the challenge that we as civil servants have to work along with startups to make that happen.
All right, I know we just have the last 5 minutes, and I think I want to go back to the topic, which is how can startups power a $1 trillion digital economy? And for startups to power the $1 trillion digital economy, we need enabling policies and regulations that would allow that. So let's talk about 2030 and talk about that one policy change. And it doesn't have to be in your ministry, it doesn't have to be something that you are driving, but any one of the 3 of you can start, and I'd love to get from all 3 of you that one policy change that you think can fast track this process and take India onto that path of $1 trillion digital economy. And anything that you'd all like to talk about.
Should I go in first? I was taken on a tour to South Korea with my startup team. And what we've not done is we've not capitalized on our high network individuals in our country. There are about maybe 3 lakh plus. They are sitting over assets of 1 million plus. We need to tap those, give them incentives. Also to show them our trust, that we can be trusted as a startup ecosystem, be transparent. I also have read very recently that the startups in the US, they don't rely on the IPO and the basic stock exchanges. So that is where we need to do. And that, I think, Aarti ma'am, if we try and build a venture capital within the government with our locking our arms and hands with the private sector, and I think given a sweat equity, do some ratings for startups who've performed brilliantly on the stock exchange, increase the trust aspect of it, I think we will be able to bridge that gap of capital, because I think what our startups need is capital. And there are a lot of corporate fundings also that can come in, and I think that is an aspect that we need to look up to. So I think this is one way forward, and I would love the DPIIT to take up this and to create a venture capital fund of their own and to take this forward.
So, well, thanks for those thoughts, Manmeet, but let me tell you one thing, that in our second version of seed fund, very early seed fund, we are looking now to, in this 2.0 version, we are looking at a very different perspective, which you said, in fact, not very different in the sense we are adding a number of things to it. Because we have a very robust digital, system in the country. We have a very excellent one. So we need to build up on that. And for that, you see, ultimately what succeeds is the kind of sales and revenues and what you get it. So if government starts getting into it, I think the kind of nudge that we need to do from the government side is providing the right kind of platform, the right kind of funding. But the people who will be able to do it the best are the ones specialists in their business. So the venture capitalists, whether it's the AIFs, they would be able to appraise these schemes and the ideas which the startups have. I think they would let them do their job. That's what I feel very strongly. But where we need to come in is that, yes, that nudge, that you need to go into sectors, which we were talking earlier also about the social disability and these kind of sectors. We need to push them to go to those kind of ideas, support those ideas. Maybe even what Abhishek was mentioning about the AI part. Let's get that in as well. But let us go to these hinterland, those very backward sectors, areas of our country. Let's get their ideas onboarded. And what I would love to have in this, to change this whole thing, is to make it spread. Spread it to all the backward and to all those kind of, let's say slightly those aspirational districts as we have. Let's go there and let's provide them the funding through the, lay down these structures and already that we have. That's how I would look at it.
Thank you. All great ideas, and the last word goes to
if I have to think of one policy push, especially with regard to pushing up us on the value chain of the innovation and deep tech research, I will say augment our research funding many times over. Today we have our research funding is around 0.7% of the GDP compared to 3% or more in China and the US. We need to push that many times over. Of course, the 100,000 crore ANRF funding, the Anusandhan Research Foundation funding, is a great step in that direction. The 10,000 crore deep tech fund of funds is again another initiative. In AI we have 2,000 crores for startups. But what we need to do is to accelerate the pace at which we spend this money, and that would require coming up with systems in which decisions are easier to take, trust-based, and people are able to take bets on that. I would actually want several Y Combinators to come in. If we can strengthen the partnership between our academic institutions and startups. Like IIT Madras Research Park is one good example. But we need several such initiatives. For a country of our size and potential, if we can have several such Y Combinators in which investments are driven at a very quick pace, the time taken for a startup to raise money in the valley is so much lesser compared to what it is in India. If we are able to create those systems, if we are able to create a system in which the government funds are co-invested along with VCs and investors, high net worth individuals, we will be unlocking a lot of value. So we need to think of creating those systems, and if we are able to bring in those policy changes, there is no reason that we will not be innovating as fast in deep tech and other sectors as we are doing in other sectors. So that's what we need to work together to make that a reality.
So we have with us here three people who are the policy makers, who are the decision makers, who are probably scripting that next success story for Indian startup ecosystem. So I would say we are all, or everybody sitting in this room is looking up to all of you as policy makers and decision makers to be able to drive that change and continue to ensure that the Indian startup ecosystem continues to thrive. Thank you so much, Aarti Bhatnagar ma'am, Manmeet Nanda ma'am, and Abhishek Singh sir for being part of this panel. I know the time is up, but it's fascinating to hear how progressive our policymakers are. Thank you.
It's our honor to have with us Mr. Kimmo Ladovirta, Ambassador of Finland. Can you please give a big hand for him, everyone? Sir, a very warm welcome to you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this session. Your Excellency, it is a pleasure to host you today for this session, and I'm glad that you could take out time. I understand that we are sitting between your lunch and this session, so we will make it as exciting as possible. And as you can see on the screen on the name, I'm here to add some diversity to this panel, which was earlier supposed to be moderated by my director, but due to some last-minute meeting, I'm here to moderate it instead. What we will do is, sir, we will start with a quick introduction, and then I would like to understand from your perspective about the innovation ecosystem. But here is it for everyone, right? We know that India is home to about 150,000 startups, and innovation today is not confined by geography alone. In fact, as we aim to create global champions in AI, green energy, digital health, deep tech, the need for cross-border partnership is at the highest right now. And I'm sure some of the startups out here today would want to expand their footprints in other countries. With that, I'm glad that today we are joined by none other than His Excellency himself, Kimmo Ladovirta, who has been the ambassador to Finland to India and previously Bangladesh, Bhutan, Maldives and Sri Lanka. We are so glad, sir, you're here with us today. Our discussion today will unfold organically around the opportunities, enablers, and future pathway for collaboration so that everyone out there can benefit. With that, sir, my first question to you is that Finland and India have a long-standing bilateral ties, and the startup space is incredibly vibrant, but also a little volatile. Could you highlight on some recent initiatives or success stories that reflect the growing collaboration in the innovation and entrepreneurship space?
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction and interesting starting question. I hope we also get the other panelists, because otherwise there's not going to be much discussion, I guess. Yeah. But anyway, thanks for the first question. And really, I think it's a fact that startups now play a pivotal role in the talent mobility ecosystem between our countries. Currently, both India and Finland share a unique conjunction of a dynamic startup landscape. And actually, Finland is home to over 4,000 startups. We also have a global platform called the Slush, for example, which is one of the world's leading startup events, attracting over 25,000 visitors annually. And for example, last year we had more than 30 Indian startups at Slush as part of 3 different delegations from Startup India, Kerala Startup Mission, and also from Tamil Nadu. And really, Indian startups have also participated in other Finnish accelerator programs, like the Slush events here in India, for example, Sisu Launchpad in Helsinki capital region, Boost Turku, 90-day Fin program, Polar Bear Pitching, and Experience Tampere. And really, one of the nice things is that this year India had its first ever polar bear pitching event here in Delhi in January at our embassy, where the founders pitched while standing in icy cold pool of water following the Finnish tradition. And the winner, Managing Director Devan Chandrasekharan of Fuselage Innovations, later participated in the global event which was held in Oulu in Finland in February. So I believe that such collaborations do open doors for Indian entrepreneurs and professionals to explore new markets, access funding opportunities, and also benefit from Finland's supportive business environment. Thanks.
Thank you, Excellency. I really like the example that you shared of the startup taking the stage at the global world. With that, it is my pleasure to invite you, Bernard. He's the head of the Economic Department, Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in India. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you. So, Bernard, my next question is to you. The idea for here, for the audience is to learn about global innovation, about how cross-collaboration opportunities could be expanded. So with that, we do understand that India and Netherlands have institutionalized innovation collaboration through our platform like the Startup Link. Based on your recent engagements, could you highlight one or two collaborations where the Dutch and the Indian startups have effectively co-created value?
This one? Yes. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for your patience. And it's a pleasure to be here to share our insights with you. First of all, of course, we are very happy to collaborate with India. Our bilateral trade has increased tremendously over the past years, and innovation and startups have played a crucial role in this. And this is much more beyond than just trade. This is also about collaboration, about learning platforms, about exchanging information, about learning with and from each other, because there's a lot of very smart people in this country and in my country as well, so we combine that. And we have a few, institutional basics for that collaboration. We signed a couple of years ago around 23 memorandum of understanding. And these agreements cover critical areas such as healthcare, pharmaceuticals, sustainable food systems, water cooperation, key enabling technologies. In semicon, for example, we will sign an MOU as well. So this is also to give you an idea on how broad the cooperation is. And one of our Dutch health tech startups, which is called Eindhoven Robotics, Eindhoven is the city where the very well-known company Philips is from, received the prestigious METI G20 award during the G20 here in India, recognizing its contributions to medical technology and innovation. And this is also a field in which we seek more deep cooperation with India in the field of medtech. And the Netherlands was also invited as a special guest for the Startup 20 working group, also under the same G20 presidency. So this was also reinforcing the collaboration that we have. But more concretely and more interestingly in that sense, perhaps, is that Arikt International is a Dutch company that has a huge plant now in the south of India, in Hyderabad, and they are growing enormously, and this is also a very good example of how we try to attract over 300 engineers, Indian engineers most likely, to work in our company there in Hyderabad, which is also a wonderful idea to further develop the the exchange of information between the two countries. And we also have a visa startup facilitation system with resources as well. So we can also combine the two countries also physically, not online, but also offline by traveling to each other's countries in that sense. And I think one other thing that I would like to mention is that we have had the launch of a soft landing facility in The Hague on cybersecurity, because in this world where geoeconomics or geopolitics is basically changing by the minute, unfortunately, I would say, cybersecurity is getting more and more important for every one of us. So we have also started a cooperation with India in The Hague Security Delta, and 5 of the companies are Indian companies are trying to base there and to work together on cybersecurity as a very important aspect of the collaboration in the startup and innovation field. I think I'll leave it to that here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bharat, for these insightful insights. I think good to know about the examples of companies in Hyderabad, of companies in the Dutch ecosystem who have expanded. With that, I think we've learned how important it is for these partnerships to foster. But what we want to do is dig a little deeper. And with that, Excellency, I come back to you again, to understand if you could shed some light on the key sectors that are driving the startup growth in Finland today. And, how which sectors an Indian entrepreneur would find helpful to expand to the market there?
Yeah, thanks. I think both countries really have strong startup ecosystems, and actually they complement each other. For example, in our expertise in deep tech, artificial intelligence and sustainable solutions align very well with India's strength in scale, software and digital transformation. And talking about Finland's startup growth, I think key sectors include, for example, quantum computing, health, energy, food tech, immersive games, artificial intelligence, data analytics, defense and dual use, as well as new materials. And although we are a small country of only about 5.5 million people, we are home to over 10 unicorns, such as